The film begins by showing a young man named Carter, who has not slept for 112 hours, or about 4.6 days. Carter is a student from St. Martin University. A lecturer named Dr. Ella has conducted research suggesting that if a human does not sleep for 200 hours, they will no longer need sleep at all. To prove her research, Dr. Ella created a drug called Cognifen, which helps a person stay awake for 200 hours. Before testing Cognifen on humans, Dr. Ella first experimented on mice and monkeys. The results showed that after going 200 hours without sleep, the animals no longer required sleep. After succeeding with the animal trials, Dr. Ella chose Carter as her human subject. She injected Cognifen into Carter's body, allowing him to stay awake for about 112 hours. Only 88 hours remained before the experiment could be considered successful, and Carter would no longer need sleep for the rest of his life. To maintain his stamina, Dr. Ella also injected a serum called Control into Carter. She documented all of her research carefully. Dr. Ella was not working alone. She was assisted by several of her students, Frannie, Dale, Holly, and her boyfriend Joe, who all witnessed the experiment on Carter. After administering the control serum, Dr. Ella allowed Carter to leave the laboratory. However, once outside, Carter began seeing a shadowy smoke approaching him. Terrified, he rushed back to his dorm room. There, he opened a book in which he had secretly hidden another drug. After taking the pill, Carter began hallucinating again, this time seeing black smoke under his bed. Panicked, he screamed hysterically. Dr. Ella, Frannie, Dale, Holly, and Joe immediately ran to Carter's room to check on him. But to their shock, they found Carter dead in a gruesome condition. Because of Carter's death, Dr. Ella, Frannie, Dale, Holly, and Joe were summoned by the university authorities to explain what had happened. Frannie testified that ever since Carter had been deprived of sleep, he experienced strange occurrences, such as hallucinations, hearing mysterious voices, irritability, and confusion. Joe also testified that Carter's behavior had changed drastically due to his lack of sleep. All of Carter's conditions had been monitored through CCTV, and there was no indication that he intended to commit suicide. Holly testified that Carter was a good person, and she herself could not believe he would ever do such a thing. However, Dale testified that he had heard Carter mention suicide several times. The focus then shifts to Dr. Ella, who is asked to give her testimony. The university authorities question her about her drug Cognifen, asking whether it had any connection to Carter's death. Dr. Ella explains that Cognifen was created to help a person stay awake, driven by her ambition to cure what she believes is a disease, sleep itself. She lies to the authorities, claiming that Carter never used Cognifen, even though in reality, Carter had been injected with it. She does this to protect her research and to have the chance to continue experimenting. After her testimony, the authorities conclude that Carter's death was the result of suicide and state that they will call them back if more information arises. They also decide to suspend classes and close the university building for 2 weeks.
Wound to the jugular vein.
In his blood work.
Yes, Francine.
That night, Dr. Ella is seen having sex with Joe. Afterward, Joe appears upset that Dr. Ella lied to the authorities. At first, Joe also believed that Carter's death was caused by Cognifen, but Dr. Ella denies this, insisting that Carter must have taken another drug besides Cognifen, which ultimately led him to suicide. Joe then reveals to her that before the police arrived to investigate Carter's death, he had searched Carter's room and found another drug called trazodone. Joe suggests that the combination of Cognifen and trazodone was likely the reason behind Carter's death. Determined to prove that Cognifen is not dangerous, Dr. Ella and Joe persuade Frannie, Dale, and Holly to participate in a new trial. They believe this is the only way to gather solid evidence to present to the authorities and the police, ensuring they won't end up in prison for what happened to Carter. Since students are on break and the building is closed for 2 weeks, they secretly use the campus laboratory without anyone knowing. This time, the test subjects are all of them: Joe, Holly, Frannie, and Dale, while Dr. Ella supervisa. They will experience firsthand what it is like to stay awake for several days. At first, Holly, Frannie, and Dale refuse, fearing they might suffer the same fate as Carter. But Joe convinces them, promising that if the drug passes the trial, their discovery will change the world and create a society without sleep. Eventually, they agree to participate.
Based on these projections.
Sound. I hate to be callous.
Sure
but
you do. Could wait and see what the board says.
Disease eliminating poverty.
With careful preparation, Dr. Ella begins injecting cognifen into the bodies of Joe, Holly, Frannie, and Dale, while also administering the control serum to help maintain their stamina. On the first day after receiving the cognifen injection, everything seemed fine. They could still interact normally like any other person. After about 84 hours had passed, each of them had received 3 injections of cognifen. One by one, they began to lose focus. Their minds became unstable, and they were unable to think clearly. Holly even started seeing black smoke and hearing strange noises from unknown sources.
I'm sore. Well, do you want to touch me?
Meanwhile, elsewhere, Frannie showed Joe several photos of Carter taken before his death. In those photos, Frannie noticed a black smoke that she believed might have driven Carter to commit suicide. Strangely, only Frannie could see the smoke. Joe could not. Frannie then showed Joe a CCTV recording of Carter's final moments, and to their shock, the mysterious black smoke appeared in the footage. Frannie explained that when the video was first played, the smoke had not been there. Confused and disturbed, Joe left Frannie's room only to unexpectedly see a white smoke resembling his mother right in front of him. Suddenly, Holly appeared, revealing that she too could see the same white smoke. After these unsettling events, Joe asked Frannie, Dale, and Holly to draw on a piece of paper what they had seen. Frannie sketched her dog, which had died after being hit by a truck on a dark road. Joe drew an image of smoke forming the face of his long-deceased mother. Dale, however, treated it as a joke and doodled nonsense. But when they saw Holly's drawing, they were horrified. It was disturbingly terrifying. That night, while Joe was trying to get some fresh air, he once again saw the white smoke forming his mother's face inside a room. Terrified, he tried to leave, but the door wouldn't open. Joe screamed hysterically until Dr. Ella finally arrived and unlocked the door. With his mind in chaos, Joe frantically searched for a weapon to defend himself against the white smoke entity. Dr. Ella quickly tried to calm him down, assuring him that these visions were simply hallucinations caused by severe sleep deprivation. It was clear that Dale, Frannie, and Holly were also suffering the same symptoms as Joe, losing focus and feeling constantly restless. Unable to endure it any longer, Frannie finally decided to go home, saying that all she wanted was to sleep. Even as she left, she asked the others to continue the cognifen experiment without her. After Frannie's departure, Dale grew increasingly restless and unfocused. Remembering the control serum that was supposed to strengthen his stamina, he reached for more. Since the vial on his desk was already empty, he opened the top drawer and took another bottle, assuming it was control. But in reality, it was cognifen. Without realizing his mistake, Dale injected himself with a dangerously high dose. Not long after, Joe entered Dale's room. There, Dale placed a device on Joe's head to measure his brain waves. Strangely, the frequency shown on the monitor did not resemble that of a conscious person, but rather someone who was dreaming. Suddenly, Joe noticed the cognifen bottle on Dale's desk and asked if Dale had used it. Only then did Dale realize what he had done, and he panicked in horror after injecting such a high dose. Hearing his confession, Joe grew terrified, worried about what might happen to Dale as a result of his recklessness. Suddenly, they both saw black smoke in the next room. At first, they wanted to record the entity, but before they could, they heard Holly screaming. They rushed to her room and were shocked to see that Holly's hand was covered in burns. Holly claimed that the black smoke had attacked her, leaving her hand in that condition. Dr. Ella quickly arrived and injected Holly with a sedative, hoping it would put her to sleep. However, after waiting several minutes, Dr. Ella was puzzled as Holly still remained awake.
No, Ella.
Good girl.
How much did you give her?
By this point, Holly, Joe, and Dale had been awake for 152 hours, and their minds were deteriorating further due to the lack of rest. Joe and Dale even heard strange noises coming from Dr. Ella's room. When they checked, they saw black smoke approaching her. Joe immediately woke Dr. Ella, while Dale, who was overwhelmed by severe dizziness, staggered into the hallway and accidentally found Holly stabbing herself with a kitchen knife. Holly nearly attacked Dale, but he managed to overpower her and leave her incapacitated. Because Holly's mind had become increasingly unstable, Dr. Ella was forced to tie her hands and feet so she would not harm herself again. Dr. Ella then asked Dale and Joe to watch over Holly in her room. As the situation grew more chaotic, Joe called Frannie and begged her to come. Since Frannie couldn't sleep anyway, she immediately rushed over. While Dale was guarding Holly alone, she kept trying to persuade him to untie her. Instead of releasing her, Dale, whose mind was also breaking down, ended up hurting Holly. She lost too much blood and eventually died. Meanwhile, Frannie finally arrived at the laboratory. She and Joe began discussing their suspicions, realizing there were inconsistencies in Dr. Ella's research. Determined to uncover the truth, Joe and Frannie searched through her research files. Eventually, they discovered that Dr. Ella had never actually tested Cognifin on monkeys, as she had claimed. The only test subjects had been mice. Joe and Frannie concluded that Dr. Ella had been hiding something else from them. At that moment, Dr. Ella caught them. Confronted, Joe and Frannie demanded that she reveal the truth. Finally, Dr. Ella admitted that she had once successfully kept a mouse awake indefinitely and afterward submitted a proposal to the university to test the drug on monkeys. However, the proposal was rejected because of invalid data. Refusing to let her research end there, she recklessly used Carter as a human subject, even though she had no way of knowing whether it would work. This was one of the reasons she had lied to the authorities, so her research on the disease of sleep could continue. Dr. Ella confessed that her ambition to cure sleep had now endangered her own students, Joe, Frannie, Dale, and Holly. She also revealed that she had falsified her research data in order to convince her students to help her with the development of Cognifin. Exhausted from arguing, Dr. Ella decided to walk away and end the experiment. But in a dark corridor, she heard noises coming from a nearby room. When she checked, it was Dale. In a sudden burst of violence, Dale slammed her head against a table, killing her instantly. Dr. Ella's scream was heard by Joe and Frannie. Dale admitted that his chaotic mind made it difficult for him to distinguish between reality and illusion. Overwhelmed with guilt for having killed Dr. Ella, he decided to leave. After Dale's departure, Joe and Frannie went to Holly's room where they were shocked to find Holly dead, lying in a pool of blood. Now only Joe and Frannie remained, struggling to think clearly and discuss what they should do next. By this point, the two of them had gone nearly 200 hours without sleep. Fearing they would lose their sanity like Dale, Joe and Frannie decided to inject themselves with sleeping medication.
7. You gave me 20 cc's, right?
However, to their dismay, the drug had no effect on their bodies. Since what they truly needed was real sleep, Frannie came up with the idea of hypnotizing themselves, but that attempt also failed.
Any other tricks if this doesn't work?
With no other choice left, Frannie recklessly used a defibrillator, pressing it against her head until the shock knocked her unconscious. Joe, meanwhile, was confused, uncertain whether he should do the same to himself. While he hesitated, the black smoke appeared again, chasing him. Terrified, Joe went searching for Dale, only to discover that Dale had already committed suicide. Lost and desperate, Joe decided to perform a lobotomy on himself by stabbing one of his eyes. The next day, Joe was found alive and receiving medical care in a hospital. To his surprise, Frannie had also survived and came to visit him. She explained that when she shocked herself with the defibrillator, it had forced her body into sleep, freeing her from the torment of the black smoke. At last, they realized a painful truth. Sleep is absolutely vital for humans to preserve both their physical strength and mental stability. In the final scene, Joe is shown still unable to sleep, screaming endlessly as the black smoke continues to torment him. Because of the lobotomy, he will never recover, condemned to suffer in that state forever. The story ends there.